It's my privilege to be sitting with such an esteemed panel on the topic of payments and cards. And so let me get this going with a little bit of some context as we go along. I think we've all lived the journey of surge in digital payments. However, I'd just like to start with the point that we're still just beginning that journey, right? I mean, if you look at some data around whether it's payments to cash in circulation or number of payments being done by a bank person and benchmark us to many peer countries, we're still not there yet. And so there's a long journey to go. Similarly, if you look at even UPI, which has taken us by a little bit of a storm, right? I mean, from an activation perspective, if I just look at the statistics of active UPI to active savings accounts, it's still only at about 30%, which means there's still a long way to go even in that penetration cycle. The sentiment, though, there's a clear secular shift when we speak to consumers, which is saying we're going to use a lot more UPI, lot more wallets, less of cash, less of check, less of debit cards. The sentiment is quite secular. So I think with that, I think the question comes as to, we're going to see a growth cycle, right? We've seen a 5x growth cycle already in terms of volumes. We're set for another 5x growth in the next 5 years to come. So now maybe we get started with deliberating on where is this growth going to come from, right? So what are the interventions? If I look at the acceptance side, Prasad, now one acceptance expansion is of course what Dilip referred to earlier, right? That you're going to see a segment of merchants who didn't have POS machines earlier who will now be able to accept credit cards through a different form factor, right? So there's also the question of economics we all debated. So what will it take to get this new set of merchants to start taking credit card on UPI? Of course, it will run on the rails. They may not be able to control it. There are many aspects to it, right? Will we see a resistance to that form factor playing out? Will that be smooth? What's the journey going to be like for that?
So first is, I think with credit cards coming on UPI, I think it is a great thing because it's going to accelerate acceptance of credit cards in the small merchant space. I think that's what you're trying to allude to, right? Definitely, we look at explosion in terms of the way credit is being distributed, right? What is going to happen? I think there is a cost factor, obviously, which is there today. There's a mindset because today the cost regime is very different, right? Today we're not used to seeing costs on UPI so far. But, and I can only share from our experience. So, we at Innovity, for example, I'll give you a very simple use case. We have about 25,000 small merchants. So we talk about the small merchant space. And they are in the electronics segment, very competitive space. Too much of competition, actually. Plus, these are the ones who are kind of also facing the brunt of the, tightening of the customer's budget today, right? But what we have seen typically today is that they are very hungry to grow. And if they can see growth, they are willing to consider costs as an acceptable now. So in terms of, acceptance of credit card, RuPay credit card on UPI, I think it is definitely a clear positive indication. Just to continue with the example of these electronics merchants today, in fact, you'll be surprised to know that they actually do pay us a premium over the normal MDR also, right? Because they see us collaborating with banks and brands and giving them offers. One simple thing, today they are able to see incremental growth coming out of maybe a simple tool like EMI. BNPL obviously is not doing very well, but EMI they are able to see. And what they can understand is, okay, if I can see EMI helping me give incremental growth and somebody is giving me EMI in a domain where there are standard affordability schemes are not present, I'm willing to pay a premium, and that's what they are doing. So if you give them a visibility of growth and they can see the correlation between growth and the cost, they are quite gung-ho about this. And this has been our experience. And this is not just in electronics or the mid-market space. Even if you look at use cases in every industry. We, for example, we have a very separate use case for food and grocery. We have a very separate use case for fashion and apparel. Right? Same thing doesn't work everywhere. But what that requires us to do is a little bit brainstorming on what the merchant, what the industry, what does consumers today want. So I don't think credit card usage on UPI is going to be it's something which we are really looking forward to. I think it's going to expand the market and in fact going to have very positive effects for us because Just adding to what Mr. Kamakoti said, that for next 10 years, debit cards are here to stay. So that kind of secures the future for POS machines also. So I'm very happy with that. I think there is a lot of, sorry, just to continue further, if we can show the merchant or the banks or whoever the partner is that there is something incremental that you can deliver, right? I think they are willing to pay for it.
And what does this mean to the POS infrastructure itself, right? I mean, we've had multiple variants of that evolve over time, right? So if we've seen the traditional POS machines, we've moved to soft POS, we've seen UPI QR come up, we've seen Bharat QR come up, we've seen different variants of QR come up. So as you go ahead, what form factor do we see remaining? Will we all these coexist, right? Or will we see over time that it's all going to be one QR on the desk and, POS machines will all move to the side? How do you see that space going, Prasad?
So the POS the existence of the POS has been, always questioned from eternity, right? I mean, I remember the first zip-zap machine which we used to see, where you would actually physically do the card swiping. Then the EDCs came in, and then the multi-acquiring POS which we see today. Those are all there, right? I think what is more important is the underlying relationship, whether it continues with the merchant and the business, right? And that continues only if the partners see us as, partners who are adding value to their business. I'll explain a little bit, right? Today, for example, if I look at a POS, from the time which used to only accept payments, today it is doing a lot much more. I mean, we are having API tools which are purchase acceleration tools. We try to help the merchant grow his business. And we therefore want to be seen as somebody who is a growth partner, not a cost item, not a infrastructure item. Okay, I set up my shop, I should buy a POS. I bought an AC, now I want to buy a POS also. We don't want to be like that. We want to be somebody who can enable his business to grow. And again, I'm taking an example from my experience, right? So we have, for example, we have a product called Genie, which is used by the small merchants again. Very relevant because small merchants today are facing the brunt of competition. They are facing the, inflationary pressures, customers not buying and all. What we are able to do is using our relationships with some of the banks and the brands, we are able to, get them value. In terms of the way the POS has evolved, let me give an example. We've just launched a deep link, which uses UPI as well. And that takes the level of convenience to a different height. So if I'm doing, and this is relevant, for example, in the space, if I'm doing a home delivery transaction, right? I mean, imagine the guy is standing at my doorstep and I'm very worried whether the transaction will go through or not. Right? There's so many breakages. We talked about the clunky experience of acceptance, etc. So we understood that, okay, there is a lot of anxiety in the consumer's mind. What can we do to reduce that anxiety? So we cut down the steps in terms of card acceptance. We cut down very simple things like the intermediary web page doesn't come in. It kind of shortens the journey by about 50-60%. Conversion becomes quicker, and the merchants start preferring you. Plus, the merchants can also start getting insights on what are the types of payment modes that the customer is preferring. What is the journey of the customer? Where did he exactly choose which link? Those kind of insights help him close the customer. So these are things which, as POS players, we are evolving, we are innovating as well. And I think over a period of time, I think the entire QR journey, right, of acceleration of acceptance by the sticker was fantastic, fabulous. But the underlying question again is, what else can the POS and the QR do today besides just plain acceptance of cards, right? I mean, there is use case for both POS as well as QR will definitely stay. They will evolve. The form factor will definitely evolve. But idea is who can deliver much more than just plain acceptance.